Swimming matchup between the Southern Connecticut Owls and the CSI Dolphins. What a fitting name for a swimming and diving team. First diver of the Owls that is Lexi Dominguez, 4.5 and a 4.5 from the two judges. Lakshmi Garoppolo on the board now as your second diver of the day.
Lakshmi sets up, spins, sticks the landing. We're going to look to your judges for the scores. 4.5 and a 4 is Coach Michelle Griffith giving her the benefit of the doubt, as we're going to actually start with both teams on the 1 meter board, both men's and women's on the 1 meter board. As usually we start out with men on one board, women on the other board, and then they switch later on, but we're going to all start out on the same board, all start out on the same playing field. As there comes the flip and the landing, we're going to look to the scores. 5.5 and 6. As this is Yubel Para here. Yubel, one of the big pieces of this CSI team. They thrive when they dive. As here comes Yubel, who'll get to the back of the board. He's going to set up for a reverse here as Yubel won gold at last NE10s, both on 1 and 3 meter, taking out Southern Connecticut's Jonathan Tressel, who was looking for those 2 gold medals in his senior years. He'll get set, hit the spin, stick the landing. We're going to look to the scores as 7.5 and a 7. That is the highest score I've seen all season so far from anyone at this pool. So Yubel doing really well out there. As it looks like off the first round of dives, Elliot Speckard is not diving, it looks like, on 1 meter. So that's an interesting look for Michelle Griffith, just rolling with Cole Malarkey on the men's side and no Speckard on the men's side. These divers are definitely people on the watch list for CSI. As one of my tasks this week before this meet was going around and doing a bunch of interviews with a lot of the Southern Connecticut team. I wanted to try to get a bit more of a lens of how they're operating so far this season. And I spoke with one of the swimmers, Nick Fournier, and one of the things that he said about this CSI team was they definitely have some athletes. I forget the name of their diver, but he's just not from this planet. So that's a good testament to how good Yubel is on the dives, as he scores a 7.5 and a 7 on his first dive, as that was absolutely incredible. As we'll see Lakshmi Garofalo here on the board. This is 1 meter as we start out with men's and women's 1 meter today. 22 events on your schedule tonight. Starting off with those medley relays and concluding with the free relays. Lakshmi gets set, spins. Landing could have been stuck a little bit better, but we're going to look at the score. It's a 5.5 and a 4.5. So we'll get Cole back up. Rookie season here for Malarkey for the Owls, as he won his first event as a Southern Connecticut collegiate diver in their last meet. So shout out to Cole for getting on the podium and winning that one. As he'll get set. Long time in the air there for him, as we're going to get 3.5 and a 5. That's a very different scores from both of the judges, as Griffith giving him the higher of the two. Is something I mentioned at the last meet that I want to mention again, is that it takes a lot of integrity from these coaches to be able to judge diving. When you're judging diving, obviously you want to see your athletes do the best, and you think your athletes are the best ones out there. But both these coaches playing a fair and honest judging on the diving side of it. As here comes Jubel for his second round. As you notice how Cole went very far out, Jubel sticking very close in, as it's going to be a 7 and a 6.5. That is Jubel's third 7 of the day. As these CSI divers are really proving to be strong here. So get back in action with another one here. Get set for this second round. There comes the dive. We'll see the scores. 5.5. As our PA guy likes to say, 5.5 bingo. Is Lexi Dominguez back up? Sister on the team, Callie Dominguez, and older brother Kobe Dominguez just graduated, so that family, they know their way around the Hutchinson Natatorium by this point. Dominguez sets up, flips, sticks the landing. We're going to look to the scores. 5 and a 4 for Lexi Dominguez. So here's Lakshmi back up. She'll get set. You notice the divers take a long time at the end of the board, just kind of concentrating, focusing up, making sure they've got everything under control. As tucks in, sticks the landing. We're going to look to the scores again. That's a 6. 2 6s. It's off the top of my head, I believe that's Lakshmi's highest score of the season, so good for her to get 2 6s at home in this big Northeast 10 Conference meet. As Southern Connecticut has kind of owned the Northeast 10 Conference over the last few years, taking home a plethora of swimming and diving championships. If you come to the Hutchinson Natatorium, you may be able to see them on our camera on the far side of the screen, is all these banners up from their Northeast 10 Championships runs. The ones currently in your frame are from 2008, 2010, and 2011, but this team has been rolling. They've won 3 in a row. That was something I talked to Captain Nick Zerva about, was keeping that streak alive. As I'll get into more of those notes from that interview with Nick Zerva later down the line, but a huge shout out to him and everyone who supplied information for me. As Jubel gets set, sticks the landing. We're going to look to the scores. 5 and a 4.5 there for Jubel. As I just want to say once again, a huge shout out to everyone who got back to me. Nick Fournier, Dylan Pressure, Nick Zerva, all the athletes that I spoke to, Tim Quill and CJ Moran, the coaches on the Southern Connecticut side. Great. I was really appreciative of them giving me some of their time, as well as CSI head coach. I was very appreciative of everyone either getting back to questions over email or text, or actually sitting down with me and having a chat. So I appreciate all of you getting me all that valuable information. It will make its way into the broadcast sooner rather than later. We'll see the landing there. We're going to get a 5.5 and a 6 there. As Lexi will go to the wheel there, tighten up the board just a little bit. Dominguez. Let's see what the scores lean on that one. 5 and a 4.5. For Lexi Dominguez there. They're flying through diving here. I believe we're in round 3 on 1 meter already. A couple of notes during this diving. Actually, we'll call Lakshmi's dive here. She'll flip and try to stick the landing there. We're going to look to the scores. It's going to go as 2 2s. Not the most successful of dive there for Garofalo, as we'll see Cole Malarkey here trying to build off that win in the last meet. I believe he won 3 meter in that last contest. It was him, and then Speckar that took both the men's diving in that last contest. The men's divers have been very strong for Southern Connecticut so far, as there's Cole again. 2 6.5s. As the high scores are flying today from the judges, as 2 6.5s is really impressive there. Ubel gets set, twists. Oh, that one looked pretty. Scores are going to go 6.5 and a 7. As on every dive that Ubel Para has done, he's scored at least 1 7. So gets set up here. Flips around, sticks it CSI. Look at the CSI coach just grinning from ear to ear. And you look at the difference between those two scores. 5.5 and a 7. Usually you see judges with a bit more of a consensus than that one, but general expression of shock there from head diving coach here at CSI, Anastasia Nicholson. So we'll look to the scores on that dive. 3.5 and a 4 there. It's Lakshmi up for 402 C's, which she's attempting here. As it looks like we're going to call an audible here from the divers. We're going to call an audible there from the coach's booth, Michelle Griffith, going 401B instead. So one thing I do want to say is I'm loving that CSI polo that their head coach has on. It's like that Tar Heels blue and just enough of a contrast from the dark Southern Connecticut blue. Is flips up. We're going to look to the scores. 5.5 and a 6. It's been a great day for Lakshmi. First dive, last dive, couple of 6s. Then there, a 5.5 and a 6 is something that I was talking to a lot of the athletes about this week. It was more so the swimmers than the divers, but they were talking about at this point in the season with this much practice, things are starting to click. You've got some guys in practice who are really performing well that haven't really shown that yet in a meet, and they're hoping that later down the line it will come through. It's about 83 days till the Northeast 10 Conference Championship meet. It's something that I spoke with Nick Zerva about, is that he actually has a counter on his phone counting down the days until the conference championship, which will be in mid-February. A lot of time to prepare, though, as we're only at the end of November, as here comes Cole with his dive there. We're going to look to the scores. Little coaching up there from Coach Michelle is 3.5 and a 4 for Cole. Trying to see Ubel Para here. Once again, we'll see if he can get another 7. This kid has been sensational. He's earned rankings on both 1 and 3 meter from the U.S. PDCA. So look to the scores there, as that was another impressive dive, and there's another 7. This kid knows how to score. The 6.5 and a 7 already for Ubel. As we continue along on 1 meter here. As you look at the way he prepares on the sideline there to Ubel, you see him stretching just in front of the pool. It almost looked like he was about to fall in, but preparing that end, preparing that landing of the dive, which is just so important to the score. Is 2 6s there for CSI, as it looks like they're going to run away with 1 meter, but an impressive showing from Southern Connecticut to try to keep pace, in particular Lakshmi Garofalo. Is these two divers for Southern Connecticut, they also swim. So they're like the Shohei Otanis of their respective sport. As we're going to go 5 and a 4.5 there for Lexi Dominguez as Lakshmi will look to follow her up. Lakshmi's been performing super well today. I've mentioned it multiple times, and we're going to see if she can continue it right here. Both rookie divers as well. This diving team is taking a huge expansion, and just as I was talking about at the beginning, Elliot Speckard not competing, I'm just seeing why he's wearing a boot on one of his legs. Because that dive was shockingly close to the board. Very happy that we didn't have Lakshmi hit the board there as we're going to look to the scores, but Speckard in a boot. There's 2 threes there as Speckard really that senior leadership on this diving squad but he's only a sophomore. The rest of the divers, all new freshman recruits: Cole Malarkey, Lexi Dominguez, Lakshmi Garofalo, and on the sidelines for this year, redshirting, it's Nathan Ivins. But this diving team shaping up pretty well, and when they get Ivins back next year, they're going to be even better because he was a all-stater back in high school at Middletown under Coach Trevor Charles. Also played Ultimate Frisbee, so little dual sport athlete there is Nathan Ivins, but he'll be on the sideline today, as I mentioned. Today and for the rest of the season, rather, is see what Ubel can do here. He's gotten a 7 in every single one of his dives from at least one of the coaches. We'll see if he can do it again. Spins, sticks, we're going to look to the scores, and I think that's going to get another 7. It's Griffith that gives it this time. It looks like that will conclude. It looks like we were getting ready to conclude our first round of diving. Look at these divers from CSI with the elaborate handshake. That will conclude our first round of diving on 1 meter. We're going to take a quick break here before they set up for their next event. We'll be back just after the break. First swimming event of the day set to kick off here. Got the women's 200-yard medley relay. Southern Connecticut in lanes 4 and 6. Staten Island in lane 5. It'll start off with your backstrokers. That's Abby Lyons and Zoe McNeil. Abby Lyons had a great last meet, taking home a event win, as Lyons will touch the wall first. As it looks like this is going to be a two-horse race. Actually, everybody looks about even. McNeil, Lyons, and your third swimmer, that is Tom Zecca for Staten Island. Jeanette Stroke will jump in there. Medley relay, all about the versatility, getting your versatile swimmers in there, as now it's breaststroke with Allison Quitos and Emma St. Hilaire in. As they'll turn around and hit the backside there. Quitos in the lead. Got about a stroke and got about a little bit of a lead there, but in lane 6 following her, that is St. Hilaire, as we're going to turn over to the butterfly here, as this is where that Southern Connecticut relay teams, they've been having some really good success, but they get their experience towards the back of it. Uricchio and Pitchell. That's Julia Pitchell and Jasmine Uricchio in the fly, but then you get down to that last leg that I'm going to talk about a little bit further on. So I want to highlight something that our CSI coach said to us, as we can get to that on file. That'd be awesome. Here we are. To get to that final leg here, two of the strongest swimmers of the day. That is Maria Janica for College of Staten Island and Southern Connecticut's Molly Kennedy. And look at that lead that Kennedy's got already, coming off a Swimmer of the Week award last week, as Kennedy holds the top times in the Northeast 10 for the 50 and 100 free, as she is going to continue to move along here, does Molly Kennedy, as she'll touch the line first, as that Southern Connecticut A team will take home the win, 153.29, as SCSU B behind them, 158.23. Staten Island A at 155.86, so they'll get second, SCSU B in third. But men's relay will start off now. A couple more teams here. A couple more teams here in the men's relay. You've got two more than you did in the women's. As kicking us off, it's going to be the backstrokers. It'll be Chris Janney, Athletic Communications' very own Chris Janney, and Mason Durant. Been getting to know Chris throughout the season, as not only is he on a team that I cover, he's also one of our student workers. So good kid to get to know. He's done a lot of great work for us, in particular during the football season. But we are underway here. Chris Janney out there in lane 6. He took home a win in that last meet. It was a real team effort for Southern Connecticut in that last meet. Janney beating out a couple of guys at WPI. Unfortunately, the Southern Connecticut men picked up a loss in that one. It's continuing along there in lane 5. That is Staten Island in the lead. Down there in lane 5, we're going to switch over strokes, and Southern Connecticut picking up two new guys here. Nick Fournier being one of them. I spoke with Nick Fournier this week, and Nick Fournier last year was not in the water due to a redshirt season, and I asked him how it feels to come back. He says it feels a bit weird being in the pool again instead of holding a clipboard or helping run the meets, but it's definitely an adjustment, and so far he thinks he's doing a good job with it, and I think so too. As Fournier finishes up his length there, as it looks like it's a real race between lanes 4 and 5 here. In lane 4, that is Zach Krantz. In lane 5, that is Julian Lopez of Staten Island. And I spoke with Captain Nick Zerva this week. He said Zach Krantz was one of his guys to watch out for. As bringing up the end of the relay, they put a freshman in a big spot, that is Concliffe. Corbin Concliffe in lane 4, just behind lane 5 there of Staten Island. As it looks like the College of Staten Island might end up with first place in this race, as Concliffe can't close the gap, but look at him go. As we cut over here, and taking home the win, it will be Staten Island in lane 5. 140.98, Southern Connecticut A, and 143.51. As Staten Island ended up getting that first place, but Southern Connecticut in second and third, so the points will add up there. As that will conclude our relays, we're going to go from a shorter, more exciting event to a bit of a longer one. As we get to our 1650s up next, this is a real test of endurance, as we're going to take a quick break so that I can not have to test my endurance. We'll be back just after the break. Only 2 schools here, but we do have a full pool full of lanes here for the 1650. Southern Connecticut competitors, Ava Emmerich, the freshman, followed by Sierra Ducharme in lane 3, Paula Castillo in lane 4, Callie Dominguez in lane 6, and Claire Hanna in lane 7. So it looks a lot like a practice for SCSU out here. They've got almost every competitor in this event except for one from the College of Staten Island, so look for Southern to try to stack up the points on the women's side here and build an early lead. Your splits there, Ducharme 30-30, looks like she's on an ESPN documentary, but Castillo leading the way at 30-13. Castillo's had a great strong start to the season, one of the senior leaders of this women's squad. She's been picking up a bunch of event wins throughout the season. In the longer freestyle events, you know that Southern women have the sprint freestyle locked down with Molly Kennedy, but Paula Castillo also helping out on the distance free. So we're going to look to the times in the women's 1650 free so far this season, all controlled by St. Michael's. 3 St. Michael swimmers in the top of the 1650 freestyle, according to Swim Cloud, is that's where you want to go for all of your NE10 as well as Division II times, as we filter down through some of the longer freestyle swims. In the 1,000 free, Sierra Ducharme, third in the conference for her time versus CCSU and Wagner back here at the Hutchinson Natatorium a little while ago. She swam in 11:05.84. Paula Castillo, 11:08.72 at WPI, puts her at 5th in the conference. Callie Dominguez, 6th in the conference at that same meet, SCSU versus CCSU and Wagner at 11:10.35, as Claire Hanna, 10th in the conference, 11:19.64. Ava Emmerich, 11th at 11:20.70. It's impressive for Ava Emmerich and Claire Hanna, both freshmen, to crack that top 15 in the Northeast 10. It just shows a testament to this training done by Tim Quill and CJ Moran, as I had a chance to sit down with both of those great coaches in the office earlier this week. They did a really good job getting me a ton of information, did Tim Quill and CJ Moran, and they start this season off with a lot of Division I competition. I asked them what the strategy was behind that, and basically what they said was, when you swim against the fast guys, you want to try to be like them. You want to try to get up to that speed. You want to work like these top performances. And speaking of working against top programs, early on in December, SCSU ends up against UConn and Yale. Those are 2 of the top 50 programs in the nation in Division I. It helps. They said it helps that they're both local, but getting those guys on the schedule is super helpful. I'm going to get a direct quote here if I can scroll down far enough. It's nice that we have a good rapport with Yale coaching staff and the UConn coaching staff, that they're able to get together. You know, sometimes that stuff isn't easy to schedule. For instance, Southern football trying to play UConn would be very difficult. It might be tough scheduling, but the situation, it's great for us to compete up against faster athletes, better athletes, and they are. You know, they're more Division I. They got Division I caliber swimmers, a lot of them coming into college a little bit more talented. But we just have this thinking, this thought process of, if you swim up against better athletes, you tend to become a better athlete. You train with better athletes, you know it tends to rub off, and you tend to kind of go with them. That's a great quote from Tim and CJ in that interview that I sat down with them yesterday to talk about that. And swimming with those athletes, they went further on, and it says it will help them make improvements to themselves, meaning the Southern Connecticut swimmers. And swimming they describe as a repetitive, monotonous sport. So it's really good to go up against that top talent, see what the top talent can do, and be able to try to replicate it. But we're going to get back to the race here now that I'm done reading off that paragraph from Tim Quill and CJ Moran, who I just want to say it again. Thank you to both of them for talking to me this week. 34:14 for Ducharme in that lap. 35:09 Castillo out there in lane 4 was your leader on that last split. As Castillo looks to be going about even pace with lane 3, both on lap 17 of the 1650. That is Castillo and Ducharme kind of pacing off of each other. And speaking of pacing off of each other, that's something that men's captain Nick Zerva said to me in the interview I did with him. He said sometimes at practice he tries to pick a rep and just go all out with somebody. He'll look at the person next to him and just say, hey, we're racing this rep. Whether you want to or not, let's go. And I love that killer mentality from Zerva as he leads this squad on the men's side along with Samir Sweetie and Dylan Pressure. But on the women's side, you've got your leaders as well. I know Ali Kitos and Zoe McNeil, part of that senior leadership squad. We saw them in that 200 medley relay. Is again, Ducharme and Castillo working off of each other here in lanes 3 and 4. All the way out there in lane 7, that's Claire Hanna, the freshman, who is top 15 in the 1,000 free on Swim Cloud. Ava Emmerich in lane 2, working her way along as well for Southern Connecticut. So it's Emmerich, Ducharme, Castillo. Dominguez out there in lane 6 as well. How can I forget about the dual threat? Or correction, this is Callie Dominguez. This is Lexi's sister. Callie a bit more experience out here on the squad at 21 years old, but Lexi just coming into college this year. Siblings is a common theme on this roster. You've got 2 that stretch across both teams, Sarah and Vincent Roney, along with Aiden and Molly Kennedy, who Aiden Kennedy you will see later. Molly Kennedy you saw in that first relay, and you will see a lot more of her later, as I will continue to talk about her. She's been killing it so far this season, as well as in her career in total. But those 2 sibling squads stretch across both the men and the women, but the women's team has some siblings of their own. The Dominguez sisters, Lexi and Callie, their brother Kobe just graduated last year, and the Pitchells, Julia and Jillian. So you got a couple of duos there as lanes 3 and 4 are still neck and neck. Castillo and Ducharme, they're only a millisecond off each other. 33.73 for Castillo, 33.74 for Ducharme. 33.97 for Dominguez, 34.21 for Hanna, 35.81 for Emmerich. As if Staten Island can crack that scoring total, first four places in every meet get points for the team, and those points add up toward your total score. So with Southern Connecticut controlling this race with most of the swimmers, if that one Staten Island swimmer can crack the scoreboard, that'd be very helpful for them to stay in this. Still, Castillo and Ducharme are your leaders, though, as Castillo and Ducharme both set for the flip turn. Castillo, about a half a body lead. As it's lanes 3 and 4 that you really want to focus on here on your screen. As there comes the flip, 36.75 for your Staten Island swimmer, 33.92 for Dominguez. Castillo, 33.89. Ducharme, 33.91. So you see Castillo starting to crank it up a little bit towards the end of the race, but Ducharme still along there, keeping just behind, kind of riding that early lead that she had. But Castillo's lead is expanding as the senior continues to move along here toward another, hopefully what will be another event win for her, as she has been doing really well so far this season as Paula Castillo. as in the Fairfield Invite all the way back at the beginning of the season. She placed third in the 800-meter free with a time of 9:53.73 did Castillo. Castillo also won the 1,000 free at WPI with a time of 11:08.72. That's good for 5th in the NE10. That lead is starting to dwindle, though. It's Ducharme and Castillo in a bit of a race with each other here. Castillo 33.75, Ducharme 33.92. So you can see Sierra Ducharme starting to slow down a little bit there. It's Castillo and Ducharme working it along here. This is length number 33 in the 1650. As I'll tell you right now, not even sprinting, I'd be tired going up and down this pool once. This girls being able to do it this many times is a real testament. This sport, you get a lot of crazy cardiovascularly fit athletes in swim. 34.10 Castillo, 33.96 for Ducharme, so it looks like it's starting to flip a little bit. It looks like Ducharme wants to take home this win over Castillo as they look absolutely neck and neck in lanes 3 and 4. Out there in lane 6, cranking along, it's Dominguez as well. Hannah, lane 7, Emmerich, lane 2. Absolutely dead even are Castillo and Ducharme through yet another trip down the pool, and there comes the flip. I guess you could say Castillo has a tiny bit of a lead, 33.92 to 33.87, but the 33.87, the faster time coming from Ducharme, is she's starting to close the gap. 37 lengths. They're going to keep going here. We're going to get you a little bit more on the SCSU women's team. They came in second out of 5 at the Fairfield Invitational against multiple D1 opponents at that Fairfield Invitational meet. Emma St. Hilaire won the 100-yard breaststroke at 1:10.43. That's good for 9th in the Northeast 10 Conference. Lexi Dominguez did very well on the diving side, and Ali Quitos, who we saw earlier, 200-yard breaststroke, 2:31.60. That's good for 5th in the Northeast 10. Jazzaricchio was another top performer throughout so far this season at her first individual win at WPI. 2:11.77 in the 200-yard butterfly. That's the top time in the Northeast 10 Conference so far this season. That's good for 79th in the entirety of Division II. 500-yard free win for Uricchio with a time of 5:17.46. Top time in the NE10 so far this season. That's good for 126th in Division II. So both of these swimmers here, a lot of these Southern Connecticut swimmers getting into the top upper echelon of Division II, and that's what this team does. They perform really well in the Northeast 10. They move along really well in their conference. They win their conference, and then they send a couple people to D2, regionals, nationals, those kinds of events. Ducharme and Castillo still neck and neck through 41. $11.28 for your CSI swimmer through the last lap as they'll continue along. 43 is that length. 41 in lane 2 is Emmerich. Lane 6, though, Dominguez continuing to move along. As they have been swimming for a total of 12 minutes straight without a break, that's what the 1650 does to you. It's in a long event as we get set for the men's one pretty soon after this. They'll continue along here to Ducharme and Castillo. 45 lengths here in this 1650 at the Hutchinson Natatorium on the campus of Southern Connecticut State University. You are watching on SCSU Owls YouTube. My name is Ben Martin. Thank you for tuning in so far to our meet on this long event of the 1650. Still lane 3, still Ducharme and Castillo battling about even here. We've seen portions where Castillo has got more of a lead. We've seen portions where Ducharme has battled back. We haven't really seen Sierra Ducharme take control of the lead, but it looks like she's starting to do it right here. Sierra Ducharme was one of those people that Nick Zerva shouted out. One thing I like to do every week that we're going to start doing throughout the swim season is we're going to start doing the Zerva shout-outs of the week. Every week, every time this team competes, I'm going to ask Nick Zerva to shout out 2 swimmers from between the past meet and the previous meet that he sees making strides, and one of those is Sierra Ducharme. Ducharme is a sophomore, and Zerva described her as, quote, a dog last year. But this year, it seems like her training was just better, has just been way better than it was last year. Not that it was bad last year, something that Zerva said. She was very fast last year and in practice. But this year, it seems like she's taking a level up. So, yeah, Sierra Ducharme has been very big for the women's squad as the leadership of these teams is starting to see her blossom in the sophomore season. "51 trips in the pool there. Ducharme and Castillo. As you can see, the fatigue start to set in with the two of them. Moving along here are Castillo and Ducharme in lanes 3 and 4. They're neck and neck. Really are. 34-41, 34-38. That is not a lot to see a difference on your screens with the eye test, but trust me, it might add up toward the end of the race as Ducharme starts to speed up a little bit. As the men are warming up for their version of the 1650 just after this one. I believe that's James Custer down there warming up around lane 7, and he'll looking to put a good performance out there along with a lot of these other distance swimmers for the Owls, but got to keep watching the women here, who the women have put up over 1,000 points in their last 2 Northeast 10 Conference Championship meet trips, winning both of those events. Putting up over 1,000 points is really good for them, as they ran away with the competition the last 2 years, as they proved to be the better team than the men. The men a bit more talked about with the men's competition this week with the coaches as well as Captain Zerva. Talked to them about their competition. They mentioned Bentley, Adelphi, your top 2 normal guys along with them, but another team to mention for them was University of Bridgeport, who made a lot of retoolings in the offseason, which I'll talk about once the men really hit the pool for their next race. But Emmerich starting to crank it up a little bit too on lap 55, as it looks like out there in lanes 6 and 7, it's last 57 and 59 out there, Dominguez and Hannah. As it looks like Dominguez is trying to get herself set for 3rd behind these 2 leaders in Ducharme and Castillo. Continuing along here through the back end. Ducharme, Castillo really neck and neck here. 37-32 for your CSI swimmer was her last split. 35-01 for the freshman Claire Hannah out there in lane 7. As we'll see what Ducharme and Castillo can continue to do along in the 1650. 34-03, 34-23. Ducharme and Castillo, 16:56.87. Time Castillo finished that last lap. As we're going to look at the 16:53. I mentioned the 3 St. Michael's swimmers leading the NE10, all in their meet against Keene. Madeline Walt of St. Michael's, 18:50.62. Shay Callanan, 19:30.85. Nola Klaus, 21:14.96. So we'll see what happens here with these 2 swimmers, but it looks like they might be able to break one of those top times in the Northeast 10, set a new best, barring any sort of disqualifications from the referees, which we will be able to see after the meet. 63 lengths, 17:31, Castillo 34:61, her last split. There's the bell. The bell rings for lane 6. That is Dominguez at 34:32. So Dominguez, Ducharme, and Castillo looking very strong. We're going to watch Dominguez in lane 6. I haven't given her enough shine in this race. 34:32. As she will continue along. As Callie Dominguez continues along through the back end, as it looks like she might try to knock this race up in first. I was focusing too much on Ducharme and Castillo and didn't even realize that she might have even been leading it. as she'll hit the line there for first at 18:29.68. That is a new top time in the Northeast 10 this year in the 1650. Ducharme 18:35.23 and Castillo in third 18:40.41. So those 3 times all better than Madeline Walt of St. Michael's, who had that previous top time in the 1650. So Southern Connecticut looks like it might gain those first top 3 spots in the women's 1650 in the Northeast 10 so far this season. As that is Emmerich finishing up in lane 2, along with your CSI swimmer Bukowska in lane 5. Emmerich kicking for the finish, as SCSU will gain spots 1, 2, 3, and 4. That is all the points in the 1650. Dominguez, Ducharme, Castillo, and Hannah are your top 4 finishers. Emmerich in 5th. And then your CSI swimmer, Bukowska, will round it out. As these long events at the beginning of the meet, you tack on the long ones at the beginning of the meet, but it only gets faster from here. You only get closer to your sprints, 200 freestyles, your 50 frees, and your 200 IMs. We'll continue along through the next few events as we are at event 2. As finishing that one, that is Bukowska, 34.11 her last split, 20.05 overall. The 20.05 from Bukowska would put her in third in the conference as well. So it looks like the 1650 top times on SwimCloud are going to get a complete and total overhaul for the women after this race, as Southern Connecticut showing why they are the top dogs of the Northeast 10, as this is the team with the target on their back. So we're going to transition to the men's 1650. You heard your Owls competitors there. Alexander Ahrens, a freshman. Dylan Pressure, a senior. Richie Hall, a sophomore. James Custer, a sophomore. So a lot of young talent in this race, along with your 2 Staten Island swimmers, as we're going to get set for the 1650 on the men's side. We've got to share another favorite swim quote over the years. Last year, one of the captains, Connor Skarzinski of this squad, I chatted with him at one point. One of his greatest quotes was Dylan Pressure. He described him as a distance animal, and he just said the words, "He just doesn't get tired." And that's coming from an Ironman in Connor Skarzinski, who had to do a 2.4-mile swim at the beginning before a very long bike ride and a 26.2-mile run. So if that's not saying something about Dylan Pressure, I don't know what is, but let's put it in the words of Dylan Pressure himself. I talked to him throughout the week. Talked to him as well as Nick Fournier because they have an interesting angle to this squad. Both of them did not compete last year. Dylan Pressure talked to him about not competing last year. He said, "I think the best part is being able to compete. I never truly left the water last year. I was practicing with the team, which was great, but nothing compares to being able to compete." He really enjoyed that Wagner meet, that dual meet between Wagner, CCSU, and Southern. That tri-meet. It wouldn't be a duel if it's 3 schools. But that tri-meet back here at the Hutchinson Natatorium, he said Wagner was a meet that he really enjoyed. He got into a race with some tough opponents, and he really felt like he was back. Talking about the men's team overall, Pressure says he thinks this team is performing exceptionally well. We got some people who are experiencing some injuries, but all in all, we have every member of the team that we started with, which he's really happy about. As far as coming back into the pool, Pressure says it's been a big adjustment coming off of a season of not competing in front of people at all. He said he'd been training and competing well and looking to continue that over the next little under 3 months. Asked him what he's excited for the rest of the season. Pressure says, "I'm truly excited to see what the next couple of months has in store for us. It goes quick. These next 2 months are where the improvement happens. Everyone's in shape now, pushing one another in the pool. This is when the new gears are found that create a championship team." That's just such a great quote. from Pressure is that this is in the new gears are found that create a championship team. So I'm going to take a quick second here, folks. I'll come back in just a second for you. Back in action here, folks. I wanted to check something out on the live stream for all of you, as one of our cameras seems to be having a little bit of a technical difficulty, but we're working on it right now as I read off these quotes from Dylan Pressure. I talked to him about goals for the season. He got really technical in his response for me, so I hope all of you understand a little bit more about swim than I do so that you can appreciate the importance of what Pressure said. He said one of his biggest goals this season has been to turn his underwaters off the walls into a strength. He said it's never been a strong part of his stroke, so I'm looking to continue to improve and make them as strong as they can be for conference. Pressure, also one of those captains of the squad. Pressure, one of those captains of the squad. He is captaining along with Samir Sweetie and Nick Zerva, who Nick Zerva I talked to this week. We'll get you more information on that. He said being a captain has been a big learning curve for him and the three of them. He said he's lucky to have captains who communicate with him really well on both sides, but especially the men's side. The three of them see things similarly and have the same goal in mind to win the conference. Doing it with Nick and Samir has been a great opportunity, and I think we all complement each other's strengths and weaknesses very well. So I just want to say that I really appreciate Dylan for coming through for me and getting me the answers to these questions. That has been so awesome to be able to speak with him and get his input as one of the leaders of this team about how this team is doing. So thank you to Dylan Pressure for talking to me before this meet and getting me all the information that I could ever possibly need about this team. But we're back in action with the real race. 31:77 was your last split for Pressure. To put that into context, your Staten Island swimmer is swimming a whopping 4 seconds slower than Dylan, who is in the lead. Dylan Pressure, watch him in lane 4. 4:35 has gone off in this race, as his comments are not the only thing that are stellar. Him in the pool also proving to be a stellar addition back for this Owls squad. Pressure in lane 4. As a saying around this team goes, if you can't handle the pressure, then don't compete with Dylan. As on length 19, he turns around once again. As you can see that he's got a big lead. But out there in lane 7, that is James Custer, also performing well for the Owls, 33.64. Richie Hall in 33.25. As Southern Connecticut lane 4, that is Dylan Pressure, 31.85. He is applying the pressure to this Staten Island squad. Length 21 for Dylan. This is Dylan's race to lose, ladies and gentlemen. As we saw the women's one, a lot more of a competition. Dylan running away with it. Dylan Pressure, a little known fact about him is that he's actually a pretty big Bon Jovi guy. Living on a Prayer, I talked to this team about karaoke songs a couple weeks ago. Dylan Pressure, that's something he shared with me, is that Living on a Prayer was his go-to karaoke song. As he's got that bumping before meets, as maybe that'll fire him up, as he's got so much of a lead in this one that he doesn't really have to live on a prayer, does Dylan Pressure. Got to work that in somehow. As Pressure, 31.49 on the last split, 33.34 for Custer. So one thing you see about these distance swimmers is just that they're so tall. Their strides are just so long that they eat up so much of the length just on one stride. Is look at Pressure push off. Look at how much length in the pool Pressure can get off of pushing off the wall. And he said that those underwaters weren't his biggest strength. As he'll continue along here, hit the flip turn, we're going to get you a split. 31.61 for Pressure. He's been in the 31s every single split. Kid doesn't slow down. Lane 4 Pressure, continuing to run away with it. Length number 27 in the 1650 free is we're going to look at our good old friend of Swim Cloud. In the men's 1650 free, it is all St. Michael's again. Raphael Cole, 17:10.59. Cal Byard, I'm assuming. Sorry if I butchered your name. 18:35. And Gavin Nelson, 19:13, are your top finishers in the 1650 free. And I think just a bold prediction out here, Dylan Pressure is going to take that time and smash it out here in lane 4. Kid's an animal. He really is. Pressure in lane 4. Continuing. Cap from Staten Island, 36.90. Richie Hall, 33.02. James Custer, 33.23. 31.56 for Dylan Pressure. I want to see Dylan break a 30 on a split out here, as he's been in the 31s all day. I want to see him go under 30. Maybe on that last lap is his kick for the end of the race. Up after this one, we're going to transition to some more sprints. Some more lighter events. The 200-yard frees are going to come after this one. The women's one will feature Molly Kennedy and Maria Janica, who are your two kind of players on the watch list for the women's squads today. And the men's will feature on the Southern Connecticut side Sam Whitaker, who was one of those Zerva shout-outs of the week. Pressure continues along. 33 lengths, 31.81 is your split for Dylan Pressure. As Pressure continues along. You see Ben Frazier on the sideline there for Southern Connecticut. Looks like he's taken like a gel down or something to get a little bit of endurance. But Frazier, another big piece of the squad on the relays, as well as some of those individual, I believe, freestyle events are where Frazier makes his money. 35 lengths for Pressure, 31 in lane 3 for Cap of Staten Island, 31.78 on your last split for Dylan. So let's talk a little more about these findings in my research. I asked the coaches for Southern Connecticut how their season has been going overall. As they say, we're starting to get into the real competitive parts of the season, as they're about halfway, like 12 weeks in. Some bigger meets coming up. College of Staten Island, obviously what you're seeing today. They have Yale and UConn when they get back from Thanksgiving, and then Pace. Along with that, it's final exams, and one thing that the coaches really stressed to me that I really appreciated in that interview was their importance on student-athlete and the order of which those are in the phrase student-athlete, that student comes first. And they said final exams are happening, so, stress levels for athletes might be a little bit high right now. And CJ added that this might be a challenging time. They're doing pretty well. They're training really well in the water, so they'll see what happens. That was something that Coach Quill said. Sorry about that one, folks. That was all Coach Quill. Something that Coach Moran said after that was, thinks the training is going pretty well. Kind of a battle with nagging injuries and some illness here and there, just like every year. It's kind of the grind part of the season. But with them in their training, they're doing a nice job, and hopefully it all translates when we get back into competition part. As one thing that they also stressed, this was from Coach Quill as well, is that they design the workouts. Like when I was talking to Coach Quill, he was typing the workout for the day. And they design the workouts. They're not the ones that have to do them, so they give a lot of credit to these athletes for having to do the grueling workouts that they know that they design. I mentioned breaking 30, Pressure on his way, 30.77. Hall 31.89, Custer 33.08, but Pressure is really the one to watch out for there in lane 4. Dylan will continue along here. Hit the flip. 45 lengths for Dylan Pressure as he is continuing to turn it up. As one thing you notice about swimming in particular, this sport, is that everybody's helping each other out. You've got at the end of the lanes, your lane counters are all people who are on the team. That is not athletic department staff. That is all swimmers keeping track for them. You've got swimmers chatting on the sidelines, talking about what's going on here. It all is a help. It's all translating there. Everybody helping out each other, which is really awesome. Little conferences between teammates trying to keep each other going, hype each other up. Everybody's cheering each other on, standing on the sidelines. great sport of camaraderie. Sometimes you would think teams like this would be a little bit more fragmented because everyone does compete for their own individual gain as well. But at the same time, it's all about for the greater good of the team with this squad. They're like a family. 49 lengths for Pressure. As he'll continue along, 12:30 has gone by in this race. As we have been between diving and swimming competing here for about little over an hour now, it looks like. Lane 4, Dylan Pressure for length 49. He'll turn it back around. We'll see what he can do. Look at him with that lead. Along with other swimmers, 32.62 for Hall, 32.80 for Custer. Those guys are out there in lanes 6, 7. Out there at the end of the pool. Pressure, 51 lengths. Kid's stride is impeccable. 31.54, 36.98 for Staten Island's Cap. 32.99 for James Custer, 32.60 for Richie Hall. So that's a bit of a race out there in lane 6 and 7 between Hall and Custer. Like 51 for both of them. It looks like Custer on his way back, though, versus Hall is on his way down. 32.60, 32.98. Hall's got the lead between him and Custer. But leading overall is still Pressure. Continuing to move along in lane 4, 55 length swim for Dylan Pressure. As he is a one-man band, you look at your screen here in lane 4, nobody's even on the same screen as Dylan Pressure. He will continue to go, 31.23. He gets a little slower on that length, but it's a long race, you know. You're bound to get a little slower towards the end. Pressure 55, continuing along. 31.23 is last split, 36.66 for Cap, 33.15 for Custer. As I do want to mention something else, as you'll see it on your screen when Pressure turns now. And you'll continue to move along here right about there. Coach CJ Moran's tie, that yellow tie, I am loving it. As you notice that all of the swim coaches come out here, at least for Southern Connecticut, in full button-down shirt and khakis kind of approach, versus CSI wearing the CSI polo, repping his school, repping his squad. They'll continue along here. 36.77, that is Cap. 32.88 for Hall. Pressure in 31.22, and we'll get you Custer's split when it pops up on the screen. Custer split 32.92. 51 trips here for Cap in lane 3. As I'd say, there's no cap that he's doing pretty well in this race. Pressure continues to swim along, 31.43 for Dylan Pressure. 61 total lengths as we get closer and closer to the end of the 1650 and get closer to those sprint events where it's a little bit less talking for me, but I appreciate talking to all of you back at home. 31.43 for Pressure. 33.48 for Custer. Now, so let's get a little bit of background in on the men's team while we've got some time. Their last meet was a loss against WPI, 152 to 131. Jack Fry led the way, though. Fry had a great week against WPI, winning both the 50-yard and 200-yard free. Fry finished the 50 free with a time of 22.04, which is good for 8th in the conference. Fry's 50 free time ties him for rank 306 in the entirety of Division II. In the 200 free, Fry swam a 147.07, which ranks 7th in the conference and ties him for 280th in Division II. We're going to stop our recap of WPI for a second because that's the bell for Dylan, it looks like. 30-12 for Dylan Pressure as he is kicking it up a notch. Turning up the pressure. As we should just rename the Hutchinson Natatorium to the Pressure Cooker when he's swimming in the 1650. He'll continue along as it looks like he's going to hit the line there in the 1650. Pressure finishes it out 29.40 on his last length. I said I wanted him to break 30, and that is exactly what he does. 17:15.67 is your overall for Dylan Pressure. I talked about him smashing that time, but he didn't. 17:10.59 is your top time in the 1650 free, still in the Northeast 10. For Raphael Cole from St. Michael's meet against Keene. However, Pressure at 17:15.67 will sneak into second in the conference overall this season, finishing that length at 29.40. As now that Pressure is done, he gets some time to take a breather out there in lane 4, cheer on his teammates. But finishing second, that is Richie Hall at 32.38, 17:54.05. So with these updated times of Pressure in second, that would put Hall in third in the conference so far in 1650. 37.12, 31.29, that is your third place finisher. That is James Custer, 18.09.11. That would put him still above Cal Byard, who currently holds the second time in the Northeast 10. So the Owls cleaning up those top times in the Northeast 10 this week, as you see Coach Quill writing down on that heat sheet. As finishing up here in lane 3, it looks like this is Cap, as he'll continue to fight. Something you notice also as well about swim is regardless of whether you come in first or last, everybody is still cheering for you, as he's going to round out here for another length. 36.17 is your last split for Cap as he continues along here. 18.49. As we're going to go back to our recap of WPI, which was unfortunately a loss for the men. That was where Cole Malarkey won his first diving event as a Southern Owl, winning the 3-meter with a score of 188.70. I mentioned Chris Janney having some season success earlier on the broadcast. He won the 400 IM in 427.77. 200 freestyle relay, the Southern Connecticut had some success. Aiden Kennedy, Travis Scott, Jack Fry, and the man who won this race, Dylan Pressure, won that event with a time of 128.80. But continuing along here at his Cap, 19:17.95 was his total time. 36.60 was his last split. We'll see what Cap can do here in lane 3. He will continue along. Cap flips. Continue to go here. Is John Cap, the 19-year-old. His Cap will round out fourth, gain some points on the men's side for CSI. He reaches out, touches the line. 38.67 is his last split. 19.56.62 is his overall time. I'm going to take a quick break before these sprint events. We'll be back just after the short break. Welcome back to the Hutchinson Natatorium, the campus of Southern Connecticut State University, New Haven, Connecticut. My name is Ben Martin, and we are live here. Good. We're live here with the women's 200-yard freestyle. Southern Connecticut competitors, Rachel Bing, Molly Kennedy, Ellie Baker, and Ainsley Dahl. Kennedy, number 4 in the conference for her time at the Fairfield Invite, 159.66. But top of the conference, it is Maria Janica. Dolphin kickoff event for Staten Island, 157.35. As you're going to watch Kennedy and Janica in lanes 4 and 5 put on an absolute masterclass in this race. 26.86 for Kennedy, 27.28 for Janica. as they are neck and neck. I want to share something that Coach said about Maria Janica. This is the coach of CSI. He said Maria works very hard, and one of her biggest attributes is that she's very competitive. If Maria's on the blocks pre-race or even in practice, I know she's going to give it her all. She doesn't just want to compete because she hates losing. She also wants to succeed because she knows it will help the team win. And it is Kennedy and Janica trying to help their respective teams win. 29-57, 29-67. Kennedy, Janica, lanes 4 and 5. They are neck and neck. Kennedy's got a bit more of a lead on this one in lane 4 as the home crowd is going to push Molly Kennedy into the line for the next flip, as this is one of the longer events that Kennedy swims. 29.99 for Kennedy, 30.55 for Janica. They are neck and neck. Can they finish it out? Kennedy, flip turn, expanding the lead on Janica. Almost a full body length for Molly Kennedy, as she will continue to move along here and hit the line for first. Kennedy 1:56.44, 1:58.66 for Janica. That time for Kennedy is now number 1 in the Northeast 10 as she takes over the time from Janica right in front of her. Your 3 and 4 finishers are Baker and Dahl. Ellie Baker, 31.50, 2:02.67 is her time overall. I was almost reading Janica's time for Baker. Sorry, folks. Ainsley Dahl in 4th, 2:09.86. A stellar race there, as we're going to get set for the men's 200-yard free. A great race there from Kennedy and Janica. They will continue to battle throughout the day. In the 50-yard free, for example, actually, it looks like neither of them are swimming the 50-yard free. That is shocking to me because Kennedy is kind of a sprint freestyle specialist. In the 100-yard free, it looks like neither of them are swimming the 100-yard free either. Janica is swimming the 100-yard free. Okay. We get ready for the men's side of this 200-yard free. Referee kicks us off. We are underway in the men's 200-yard free. About an even number of competitors on each side here between CSI and Southern. 2 of those competitors have been on the segment I'm going to call Zerva's Shoutouts of the Week. Those shout-outs of the week last meet were Samir Sweetie was one of them. And now the new one, Sam Whitaker. Zerva talked about for himself a point where he's doing very well in practice, but it's not necessarily clicking for him in meets, and he feels the same way about Whitaker. Crushing it in practice, hasn't really showed up in the meets yet, as we will see if it shows up today in the dual meet. But lane 4 out there, that is Whitaker. Whitaker swims to the line, hits the flip. Whitaker 28 flat for the split. 27.93 and 27.90 lead that race, but this is really tight, folks. Everybody out there has got her running in it. Whitaker in lane 4, out there in lane 2 in this race. That is Samir Sweetie for Southern Connecticut, one of the 3 captains. They are continuing along. Coach Moran cheering them on as they continue through to the line. Whitaker hits the flip turn again. He's got 28.26 for his split. 28.13 for Quiroga as they're starting to speed it up. Look at the top half of the race. Whitaker continuing along, Sweetie along with him. And out there in lane 8, Quiroga also putting up a battle. These Southern Connecticut guys competing against each other, 2, 4, 6, and 8. They really want it. As we'll see who gets this one, Kennedy, Quiroga, Sweetie, or Whitaker. And it is Whitaker, the young freshman, who makes it first, 28-25, 149-36. In second, that is Sweetie at 149.81. Third, that is Lucas Quiroga, 150.01. Fourth, Aiden Kennedy, 150.40. All those guys very close to each other, all packed in that race were Sweetie, Whitaker, Quiroga, and Kennedy. The Owls gaining all top four scores, all top four on your point totals. As that is a win for the freshman Sam Whitaker in the 200. The men's 200 free, I want to talk a little bit about it on that swim cloud. Bridgeport leading the way. We're going to talk a little bit about Bridgeport later on. Your highest Southern Connecticut swimmer, Jack Fry, 147. Whitaker finished that one, I believe, in 149, which should put him outside the top 10 of the Northeast 10. But still an impressive time there from Whitaker. Women's 50-yard freestyle. This is going to be a fast race. Both Pitchels competing. Julia and Jillian, Jade Ventura, and Emily Denise are all of your competitors. Denise had a great meet against WPI. She helped this team to a couple wins. Here we are. We are in the water here for the 50 free. We'll see who jumps out to a lead, as this is going to be a tight race. It's such a short distance. Hitting the line. First 2 and 3, it looks like. No, that middle is really where the competitors are starting to jump out to a lead. It looks like lane 6, that is Pitchell. That is Jillian Pitchell, who's jumping out to that lead in lane 6. Lane 4 as well. Denise also there. As we're going to look to the scores, that is Jillian Pitchell, 25:37 is her time. Emily Denise, 25:43, rounds out second place. So a couple of the young guns continuing to keep pace for Southern Connecticut, as young guns are a theme of this team. A lot of freshmen here, a big turnover. When I talked to Coach Quill about what it's like to coach all of these freshmen, he said it's a lot of fun. He said it's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge, and that's exactly how I like it when people look at challenges, is that opportunity to succeed, that enjoyable opportunity to take it on. Men's 50. Nick Zerva out there, one of those guys that I talked to earlier on. It's going to be Zerva, Fry, Frazier, and Custer. I want to look at those 50 free times. The 50 free, it looks like a swimmer from Pace is going to be at the top. Guess you could say he's setting the pace for the conference. Jack Fry's time against WPI, the 22:04, earned him 8th in the conference. SCSU and Wagner and CCSU at that meet, 22:10 was what Frazier went in, and that earns him just below Fry in 9th. We're going to watch out here in this 50 free. As continuing along here, lane 3 is Zerva behind the lead. It's lanes 4, 5, 6 that are really got that lead. Fry takes it home, 21:87. Ben Frazier at 22:16. In third, you've got a Staten Island swimmer taking that one home, and Staten Island also cleans up in lane 4. So the sprints have been a success for Staten Island, is where they've gained some points. Nick Zerva rounds out 5. James Custer rounds out 6, who have already swam events today. Versatility is big for this squad. As we reach event 9, this is the individual medley. As tonight in total, you are looking at 22 events. Actually, should be 24, because diving is not on my sheet. As we'll see if we get the 3-meter today. Women's 200 IM, Roney, St. Hilaire, Vogel, and Loacano out there for Southern Connecticut. Back in action here. IM time. Talked about those sibling duos, Sarah and Vincent Roney, one of them. Aiden and Molly Kennedy. Aiden and Molly Kennedy commented to the Southern Connecticut Student Magazine as well about being a sibling duo. So when that magazine comes out at the end of the semester, you can take a look at Aiden and Molly Kennedy's story about them being sibling swimmers. And it turned out really well. A good buddy of mine, Jamai Vasquez, is writing that story up. So talented writer, talented interviewees. That should be a good recipe for success. As we're back here in this IM, as we're going to look at our good old friend Swim Cloud here. For some times, 200 IM on the women's side. Abby Lyons third in the conference in 200 IM, 2:15.82. That was against CCSU and Wagner at home here at the Hutchinson Auditorium. But also Emma St. Hilaire rounds out ninth in the conference at 2:19.44. As they continue along with the breaststroke here in the IM. St. Hilaire, one of those competitors, watch her in lane 4, flanked by a couple of Staten Islands in lanes 3 and 5. Vogel, Erilyn Vogel, out there in lane 6. Rena Loicano in lane 7. Lane 2, it is Sarah Roney. As they'll continue to move along here. Looks like lane 4 and 6 are really the ones at the top of the leaderboard there. St. Hilaire and Vogel. We're into the free, arguably the fastest stroke of the IM. 6, Vogel. Looks like she's got a bit of a lead. 40.70 was her last split. St. Hilaire in 39.28. They turn around at the line. Vogel still got the lead. St. Hilaire behind her. As you'd wonder if in this IM some of these swimmers have a specialty in any of the 4 particular strokes, and if that length comes a little bit faster, it looks like St. Hilaire's catching up in the free. But we're going to look at the scores. Vogel wins this event at 2:17.06. St. Hilaire, 2:17.58. Staten Island will round out place 3, and Loicano in lane 4, 2:20.84 as we're going to get set for the men's 200 IM. As we are on to the second page of the heat sheet, folks, we're moving along. Lucas Quiroga, Chris Janney, Travis Scott, and Kenny Lagamau are your competitors. Back in action here, men's version of that 200 IM that we just saw on the women's side. Travis Scott making our last game day post-game graphic. Huge shout out to the picture that came there. I believe that was work of last year, but want to shout out our media team down there. Our video and photo, that is Sophia and Dejani, who you may see on your screen pop up around. Sophia in the blue hoodie, Dejani out there, I believe, in a black hoodie. 3, 4, and 5 look to be neck and neck. Scott in lane 6 just behind him. Lanes 3, 4, and 5 are going to be Quan of Staten Island. Chris Janney of Southern Connecticut, one of my favorite guys on this team, I will say it. And in lane 5, that is Lopez of Staten Island. KJ continues along here as they'll get set for the free. Chris Janney. There's a lot of events for this squad. Actually, they're getting set for the breaststroke. Free is your last stroke. I got to remember that about these IMs. As all you swimming fans out there are probably yelling at me like, how does he not know what the order of the 4 strokes are in the IM? But whatever. We're back. Breaststroke. Janney, 31-31 is his split out there in lane 4 as he's trying to keep pace with both these Staten Island guys in lanes 3 and 5. 3, 4, and 5 all neck and neck. It looks like lane 3, Quan with the lead. He'll touch the line and start the freestyle, as this is the stroke where someone can really put on a bit of a show, as he's gaining that lead on Chris Janney. Is Quan out there in lane 3. As we'll see if Janney can round out second, but looking at it now, it looks like these CSI guys are running away with it, as it looks like CSI, not CSI Miami, but CSI New Haven out here at the Hutch. As rounding out first and second are Lopez and Quan of CSI. Janney will get into third for Southern Connecticut. And in place 4, that is Travis Scott. 208.39 is Scott's split. 202.96 for Lopez. 203 flat for Quan. 205.50 for Janney. As we are setting up here for the 100-yard butterfly on the women's side, as we're going to take a quick break before we set up here. We'll be back just after the break. We are back. Second round of diving. This is the 3 meter. We have 3 female competitors, 2 male competitors. Cole Malarkey and Yubel Para on the men's side. 2 Southern Connecticut to 1 CSI on the women's side. So Cole will lead us off. So the women lead off in the 1 meter. The men are leading off in 3 meter. A little bit more room to do some tricks as here comes Cole. We're going to look to the scores as a lot of Cole's fans come out here. 2 5s for Cole Malarkey as here's Yubel Para. We saw him put on a clinic in 1 meter. As I'm excited to see what this kid can do in 3 meter. Up in the stands today, diver alumni Jonathan Tressel, who I've been speaking with between events when I've been taking my broadcast breaks. Tressel said that, just like I told you, this kid is insane. He said that those drives on 1 meter that he was doing were easy for him. And he also said the words, "The conference is his," about Yubel. Very confident about Yubel. JT came up just short of Yubel at the last conference meet as there comes the spin and the landing. We're going to look to the scores. 7.5 and an 8. First 8 of the day for Yubel Para. As Lakshmi comes back up, she's been performing well on the board today. Particular on 1 meter, she performed very well. We'll see what her first dive in 3 meter looks like, but those words about Yubel just say a lot about him. Talked about diving, though. When I spoke with the CSI head coach, I said, what would you say are some athletes to watch on the swimming and diving side? He said both our divers have the opportunity to do great things this season. Yubel Para was an All-American and Diver of the Year last season, as well as our women's diver, Jackie DeFranco. They both push each other on a day-to-day basis. So these divers are a big part of their team. As gaining some points in diving can be a very big part, as here is Jackie DeFranco. She did a very good job on 1 meter. Overall, 1 meter was very good. I really liked what I saw out of these CSI divers. I mentioned Lakshmi, what I really liked out of her. Cole had a very strong showing, and Lexi Dominguez put in a very strong effort as well. So 1 meter was very good. We'll look for 3 meter to be the same sort of cinematic entertainment here for you fans on the SCSU Owls YouTube channel. Here is DeFranco. Sticks the landing on that one. We're going to look to the scores. That is 5.5s. As up next here is Lexi Dominguez. She will finish off round 1 on 3 meter. As these 2 divers from CSI, Yubel and Jackie, Para and DeFranco, both very good. You saw the thing that I was actually very impressed with them is that very complex handshake they had going after 1 meter, as here is Dominguez. 2 5s for Lexi Dominguez. As I will say it, I did a lot of talking this week, gaining a lot of info from the coaches, a lot of info from a lot of the swimmers. Before our next broadcast, folks, one thing I want to do for you is I want to learn a little bit more about diving. I don't know the most about diving. I'm trying my best out here, but I want to definitely try to learn a little bit more about diving, how this diving team works for Southern. So I'm going to say it now. I would love to chat with a lot of those divers in the next week coming up before their next meet. It's a nice score for Cole there. Cole Malarkey as Yubel Para is back up. Here is Para. On to the end of the board, and there comes the flip. There goes the landing. You notice how close he keeps it to the board. 6.5 and a 5 for Para. As here is Lakshmi back up. That is, I believe, Yubel's first dive without getting a 7. I want to see what his score turns out to be by the end of the day in diving. As here is Lakshmi. Southern Connecticut women's diving leader now, with Lexi Dominguez a little bit further behind as Lakshmi. It's the flip, looks the landing. We're going to look to the scores. 4.5 and a 5 for Lakshmi. As here is DeFranco. Back at the end of the board. Looks like there's going to be a reverse on this one as everyone's warming up for their future events. DeFranco, 6th landing. We're going to look to the score. Ubel very happy about that one. 5 and a 6. I want to talk a little bit about CSI as a team as a whole while this continues to move along. Spoke with their head coach. Once again, a huge thank you to the CSI coaching staff for getting back to me. I emailed them about 4 days before the meet. I noticed it was a little last minute, but the turnaround was quick. So I really appreciate them getting back to me, not only quickly, but also with great information. I really like this response from head coach about his goals for the season. He said, I think it would be every coach's goal to win a conference championship, but we know that will not happen overnight. So our focus is to just better our results from last season and do our best to rise in the team rankings. Individually, Ubel has qualified for NCAAs, but we're hoping to see a swimmer qualify or earn a B cut. Ubel, very impressive on the board, but here's Southern Connecticut's Cole Malarkey. Here comes the landing, here come the scores. 4.5 and a 4. This crowd is getting hyped for Malarkey. There's one thing you notice about the difference between Malarkey and Ubel is that Malarkey lands a lot further out from the board than Ubel does. As Para sets up again for another dive, as we'll see what he can do. Here is Ubel Para, the NCAA qualifier. Flips. Wow. If you're watching here, that is an 8 and an 8.5 for Ubel Para. This kid's putting on a clinic. As it might be a little small on your screens back home, it looks a little small in my production screen as well. But the best thing to watch from diving so far today has been the CSI diving coaches' reactions to when Ubel just does something out of this world. As here is Lakshmi, leader on the SCSU women's side today as far as the score column. She'll get set for yet another dive. Gets set, tucks in, sticks the landing. That one, nice dive there. As get another shocked reaction there from CSI's diving coach. 2 5.5s. Here's DeFranco. DeFranco out there. As we can take a look at our good old friend Swim Cloud as DeFranco continues to tighten the board for your diving scores. Lexi Dominguez at the Fairfield Invite, 131.45. Lakshmi Garofalo, 118.80. Your top scorers, though, women's 1 meter diving with, we're going to 6 dives because that's what we're diving today. As DeFranco gets set, sticks the landing, we're going to look to the scores as 6s on the board for DeFranco, and that shows exactly why she is leading the conference in Women's 1 meter when we have 6 dives present. Jacqueline DeFranco, 248 as that top score in the conference. Caroline Rano from Pace, 231.53. And then going all the way down to number 6, that is Lexi Dominguez at that WPI meet, 146.40. Lakshmi, 142.65. Let's bump it up a little bit. Let's see what happens if we go down to 5 dives. DeFranco second in meets with 5 dives, 170.60. And if you go up to 11, only one diver in the conference has dove with 11 events on the women's side. Let's go to the men's. Men's 1 meter. That was all 1 meter scores, by the way, folks. Men's 1 meter scores with 6 dives. Yubel Para, 405.75. Just for some context, folks, that is almost 200 points higher than the second score. That is Tyler Romero of Adelphi, 279.55. Elliot Speckard, though, 1 meter with 6 dives, 246.23. That was at Westchester to begin the season. And Cole Malarkey, 216.65 at the CCSU Wagner meet back here at home. Let's go to 3 meter because that's what they're diving on. Let's look at 3 meter scores. Once again, you would assume Para leading the category, 363.70. Tyler Romero in second, 273.70. Speckard, though, rounds out the top 3 as here comes the flip and almost stick there. That one looked like it hurt a little bit. So we'll go to the scores. 2s even there. So it looked like Para tried something there that he couldn't necessarily stick, but rounding out the top 3 in 3 meter, Elliot Speckard. That meet against CCSU and Wagner, 219.85 was his score. In 5th against WPI, Cole Malarkey, when he got his first win of the season, 118.70. Let's go to women's 3 meter now that Lakshmi is back up. Women's 3 meter. Wow. Someone overtakes DeFranco in women's 3 meter with 6 dives. That is Caroline Rano, 271.30. Jacqueline DeFranco, Staten Island versus Pace, 253.35. Lexi Dominguez and Lakshmi Garofalo bring up the back end, though. 126.45 against WPI for Dominguez, 120.05. Lakshmi Garofalo against CCSU and Wagner, but DeFranco back up. DeFranco back up here. Mentioned top score on 3 meter, 6 dives. Top score on 1 meter, rather, 6 times in the conference. Second score, 3 meter. Here's DeFranco. She'll set up, flip, stick the landing. We're going to look to the scores. That looked like a very clean dive. It's 2 6.5s for DeFranco. Dominguez back up. We mentioned that time against that score rather against WPI, 126.45, good for 7th in the conference. Expand this out to the entirety of Division II for women's 3 meter with 6 dives. That score from DeFranco as Dominguez sticks that one. We're going to look to the scores for her before we rattle off this number. That is 4 and 5, but that score for DeFranco puts her at 18th in Division II. That is the entire country, folks. 253.35 puts her in 18th in Division II. As I want to look and see what she's got for 1 meter as well, and then we'll look at Yubel as well and other men's competitors. But back up here, Yubel again. not finding. As he'll get set, stick the landing. We're going to look to the scores again. As this team, this CSI team, 7.5 and a 7. These two CSI divers, DeFranco and Para, are ones to look up to in the conference. Here we are. DeFranco 18th entirety Division II, 253.35 in 3 meter. Garofalo back up. Another round of 3 meter is after 3 meter here. We would be on event 11 out of 22. So we're about halfway done, folks. Appreciate everyone watching out there on YouTube, on the SCSU Owls YouTube. As looks at 2 5s there for Garofalo. Is everybody watching in on this stream currently right now. Also, at any point throughout the day, we thank you for your viewership on the SCSU Owls YouTube channel. My name is Ben Martin, and we are live from the Hutchinson Natatorium on the campus of Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven, Connecticut. Here's DeFranco back again. She's top 20 in Division II. We'll see if she can prove exactly why. As we'll get set here. Flip, sick. Scores 5.5 and a 5 as so we'll see Lexi Dominguez back up. As after her we will transition back to Cole and Jubel. And I want to mention something here about Jubel Para. Men's 3 meter dives, when 6 dives are at the meet, Jubel Para 363.70. That is the top score in the entirety of Division II. Division II is massive. And he's got that top score. Just to put it into context here, there are about 58 men's Division II swimming programs. There are roughly about 300 Division II schools. So out of all the schools in Division II, not necessarily all that have swimming programs, but out of all the schools in Division II, we will be watching after Cole goes up here, the top diver in the country in Division II. That is ridiculous. As we will look at the scores here for Cole, 4.5 and a 5 as Jubel's back up. That 363.70, the best individual performance out of anyone in Division II. He's got almost a 20-point lead on the next person. As just out of curiosity, we're going to look at something here, folks, just out of curiosity for you. That 363 would put him 12th if he were in Division I competition. He'll flip, hit the landing as we're going to look to the scores here. 7.5s for Para. As that is nuts that hit that 363 individual score would put him at 12th in the entire country in Division I if he were a Division I competitor. Behind a diver from Texas A&M. Right above that would be another diver from USC. And right below, 2 from Indiana University. That is absolutely insane from Para, but I will say this, though. I would love to see what Speckard could do if he were out there. Not saying that he could necessarily overtake Para, but I think it would be an interesting showdown to watch between Elliot Speckard and Jubel Para out there. As Dominguez gets set, as the women's divers for Southern are at full strength. Dominguez, Garofalo and Dominguez, 3 and a 2.5 there as we're moving along here on 3 meter to conclude our diving for the day. DeFranco. So we'll look and see what DeFranco can do here. on her next dive up on 3 meter. Is after diving, I believe we're going to move into the butterfly. Is if that's the case, right after diving, Lakshmi Garofalo's got to get back in the water for butterfly. Just look at the reaction again from CSI's coach, 7 and a 6.5, as DeFranco and Para continue to run away with it. As these are the two best divers in the Northeast 10 right here, for sure. And they've definitely got the best handshake in the Northeast 10 as far as what I've seen so far. There comes the dive there. I believe that's Lexi Dominguez as we're going to look to the scores. 2 4.5s. That will conclude diving for the day on 3 meter. Don't have the official results yet, but I think it's safe to say that Yubel Para and Jackie DeFranco came away with the win in 3 meter. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll be back just after the break. We are back in action here with the butterfly, as I couldn't have timed that break any more perfectly. Garofalo coming back off the board to compete, along with Jazz Uricchio, Claire Hanna, and Rachel Bing out there for SCSU. Uricchio in lane 4, looks like she's got the lead. Uricchio's got the lead out there in lane 4. 28.67 is her last split. They'll continue along here in lane 4 is Uricchio. She's got the lead. Continuing along here to touch the line. Sorry, folks, for all that camera flickering. Having a couple of interesting connections is what's more important for you to see than to hear my voice. So I'm going to take a quick break and fix these up. Sorry I wasn't there with you folks right at the beginning of that event. I'm fixing a couple of live stream errors that we've got right now as well, so I'm really sorry to you folks back home that this event has had some flickering in it, but it looks like with the solution I got going right now, it seems like we don't have anything going on. But anyways, I'm going to stop focusing on the technical difficulties and focus on what's going on in the pool. And what's going on in the pool here is Durant. Durant leading the way. He was one of Zerva's shout-outs of the week in the last meet. Look at Durant go. He's got a bit of a lead there on lane 5 as Mason Durant lets those big arms lead the way as that kid lives in the weight room. 29, 28, 54, 52 overall for Durant. Quan of Staten Island in second. Rounding out third was Jacob Tanner, and in fourth it is Richie Hall. So the Owls get 3 out of the 4 point scorers in this event. As once again, sorry about all the flickering in that event. I wanted to focus a little bit on getting that together for you. Back again here, and we got more flickering. Okay, welcome back. 100-yard freestyle, as this is going to be Janeka's event. As I talked to the coach about Maria Janeka, I read that off earlier. I will read it off one more time while I'm fixing this. Janeka, Maria works very hard, and one of her biggest attributes is that she's very competitive. If Maria's on the block pre-race, or even in practice, I know she's going to give it her all. She doesn't just want to compete because she hates losing. She also wants to succeed because she knows it will help the team. So shout out there to Janeka as one of those players on the watch list for Staten Island. As continuing along there, Janeka wins this one, Pitchell in second, Ducharme in third, and Jazz Aricchio rounds out fourth. As continuing along, your final swimmer, Yakub for Staten Island. More flickering occurs there. 54-65 for Janeka, who wins the race. That is over, almost 2 seconds over Pitchell in second. It's a big lead there for Maria Janeka. Men's 100. Getting set here for the 100 on the men's side. 100 free, that is. We're at event 14. Got 22 in total, so flying along a little bit here as we are underway. As talking a little bit about Jack Fry, he led the way at WPI, winning both the 50-yard and 200-yard free. Fry finished the 50 free at 22:04, which is good for 8th in the conference. His 50 free time ranks him in the top 315 in Division II. 200 free, Fry swam 147.07, which ranks him 7th in the conference. Ties him for 280th in Division II. As look at lane 4, though, that is Ben Frazier, my fellow Amity alum. Moving along here, Amity just a couple minutes up the road, so Frazier continues along there in lane 4. Lane 6, though, continuing along with him. It's Frazier, it's Fry. They're going to continue along, touch the line there. That is Jack Fry, 48-13, 24-46 was his last split. Frazier, 24-80, 48-17 was his last split. Staten Island rounds out places 3, but place 4 goes to Aiden Kennedy again, cleaning up those last couple of points. As you see Coach Quill speaking a little bit there in lane 4 on that 100 free with Ben Frazier. As we're going to get to the 100-yard backstroke here on the women's side, Ainsley Dahl, Zoe McNeil, Rena Loacano, and Ellie Baker. We heard a little bit about Rena Loacano from Nick Zerba. As he talked about Ducharme. Loacano also performing very well for the women's squad this year. As we get ready for the backstroke, another person that we will see in the men's version of this race is Zach Krantz, is someone who Nick Zerba highlighted, who we will talk about once the men's version starts, but we are on the women's 100 backstroke as we are underway. As I mentioned earlier on in the broadcast, the women's team scored over 1,000 points at the Northeast 10 Conference Championships 2 years in a row. And in order to do that, you got to be able to win in multiple different kinds of events. As right now, they're putting on a show in the backstroke. Lane 4, that is McNeil. But really with the lead here just by a little bit is lane number 6. Lane 6 in this backstroke is Rena Loacano. 30.77 for Loacano. Who will be your leader? Baker, 31.68 for the young freshman, 32.01 for Zoe McNeil. Those are your Owls competitors. As well as in lane 2 on the backstroke there is Ainsley Dahl. So a couple of young pieces in this race for Southern Connecticut. Continuing along here. Lanes 5 and 6. Loacano, can she beat out Staten Island? She does. Rena, 33.10, 103.87 will be your winning time. Zoe McNeil will get 3rd for Southern Connecticut, and Baker will get 4th. So good showing there from the freshman to stack up 4th place. We're on to the men's 100-yard back, event 16 of the night. Thank you to all who have tuned in for the entirety of this stream, or even just parts of it, as we get closer and closer to those relays. In this dual meet, a battle in the Northeast 10, CSI and Southern Connecticut. As I want to look a little bit at Southern Connecticut's schedule coming up, we highlighted that meet against UConn and Yale, 2 of the top 50 programs in the country. But we're going to continue to look and see. I was talking to Tim and CJ. They said this is really when the grind starts, was kind of the TLDR paraphrase of what they said. But moving along in the schedule, Yale will be on December 4th, and then the next day they travel to Pace on December 5th. They'll head up to Pleasantville, New York. They don't return to the pool until January 9th when they're back here at the Hutch to take on United States Merchant Marine Academy. And then the following day, they are also here against Assumption. So we're back underway with the backstroke. Is noticing something about the schedule. January is really when this team piles in a lot of meets. United States Merchant Marine Academy on the 9th. They get Assumption on the 10th, Bentley on the 17th, and St. Michael's College on the 24th. That is 4 swimming events in a row, 3 against Northeast 10 schools. That Bentley one should be one to watch on the 17th. But talking about the conference, Nick Zerva chatted with me. He mentioned Bridgeport as a team coming into the conference with some serious firepower. 25-73 for your Staten Island swimmer leading the way in the backstroke, but behind him by a little bit in lane 6, that is my guy, Chris Janney. They'll continue along here, though. That looking like in the lead is lane 5, continuing along for Staten Island. He will hit the line there. 53.91 as we're going to continue along here. In second, that is Durant, 58.92. 59.08 for Janney. And in fourth, we get one more SCSU swimmer out there in lane 2. That looks like Legamo picking up a 4th place spot. We're going to transition from a shorter event, the men's 100-yard, to the women's 500-yard free, but I alluded to Bridgeport as a competitor for the men, and I want to talk a little bit about what Nick Zerva said about Bridgeport. He talked about, I would like to take a conference championship over a best time any day, is something that he said, which is a quote before talking about Bridgeport that I want to mention. But he said, the conference looks a lot different this year. Like, I'm sure you've seen Bridgeport. They're really fast. They just reinstated their team and picked up 13 swimmers from other countries. So spent a lot of money. They got a lot of really good kids. And he said it's about winning for this program, both on the men's and women's side. And they're in the way of that. And I asked him if Bridgeport was their biggest obstacle. Zerva said, absolutely. He said, we faced our Bentleys, we faced our Adelphis, we've overcome those challenges. But this is just a complete new monster. So there's a lot of urgency in the season as well. So that's something just interesting to say about Bridgeport on the men's side coming in and could be that top dog. But Southern Connecticut on the men's and women's side have been very strong throughout recent years. Believe they've won 80% of Northeast 10 Conference championships that they've been in. But here we are, 500 free, and Kennedy's out there. This is a long event for Molly Kennedy. Molly Kennedy describes herself as a sprint freestyler, but out there for the 500 free. Interesting to see her get a look here. Molly Kennedy took home Northeast 10 Conference Female Swimmer of the Week this week, and I want to read off a little bit about just how well Molly Kennedy did last week against WPI. Molly Kennedy had a great week for the Owls against WPI, won the 50 and 100-yard freestyle, and placed second in the 100 butterfly. Kennedy finished the 50-yard freestyle in 24:29, which ranks tops in the Northeast 10 Conference so far. And who did she beat out? Janica of Staten Island by 0.02 seconds. Her time in the 50 free ties her for 74th in the entirety of Division II. Kennedy's 100-yard freestyle time of 52.81 also puts her atop the conference, beating out second place Amelia Myers of Felician by almost a full second at 0.73 seconds. Kennedy's 100-yard free time has her sitting in 68th in Division II. So you see Molly Kennedy, this is a young season for this Owl squad. They've only competed in about 4 meets, but Kennedy climbing up the ranks, ascending really well into that top upper echelon. You can tell that she's always going to do well at Northeast 10. She's won 7 medals last year at the Northeast 10, winning all of her events that she was in. In the butterfly, Kennedy finished 1 minute and 15 seconds, which was good for second in the conference, beating out third place by 30 seconds, who was once again Janica. So you talk about versatility. You talk about Kennedy with the butterfly, the longer freestyle events, the sprint freestyle events, and also Janica being a little versatile for CSI. But in this 500 free event, Kennedy's last split, 32.54, 33.12 for Emmerich, 33.96 for Vogel, 36.16 for Sarah Roney, 35.79 for Staten Island. As continuing along here are these competitors in the 500 free. This is event 17 of the night. I'm looking out for a leader here. And Kennedy swimming along to length 11. Emmerich also on length 11, lane 6 as well. That is Vogel on length 11, who we saw win an event. The Owls look like they're jumping out over Staten Island here is really just the observation that I'm making early in this event. As a little bit behind on the lengths is your lane 3 swimmer for Staten Island, but she's about a lap behind Molly Kennedy. 32.90 for Molly Kennedy, 32.88 for Emmerich as she starts to speed it up. As we'll see who can come home with this race. Kennedy is such a big piece of this team, as I mentioned, winning 7 golds at Northeast 10 Conference last year. She broke meet records last year down at Bentley, I believe. But Kennedy is a really big piece of this team. I would say she is the #1 women's swimmer out there. When I talked to Zerva just about this team, he said Molly Kennedy is just insane. So just shows how good she is out there in the water in lane 2. Closest on your screen is Molly Kennedy. Kennedy keeps going, chugging along. 32.78 was her last split. I do love what the board's doing right now too. All the names are flashing in like a bright red and neon yellow kind of color. That is a really cool color to see up on the board. 32.69 for Kennedy on her last split. Length 17 for Molly. Ava Emmerich, 33.20. Also length 17. (17 lengths for Kennedy. You got Kitos timing her at the end. I believe that is Ducharme working out there with Emmerich. The bell rings. That is for Molly Kennedy. This is her final trip up and down the pool in this 500 free. 32.85 is her split on that last lap. We'll see what she can do here. Flip turns, only one more to go. Kennedy continuing to move along here in lane 2. Lane 7 out there, that is Roney plugging along as well at the far end of your screen. But it looks like Kennedy is going to finish this one out on top. 5:21.15 for Molly Kennedy. That will earn her first. And in second, it is the rookie Ava Emmerich. 5:28.13. Molly Kennedy won that race by 7 seconds. Whoa. I thought, get a little nod to those old school Phoenix Suns. That's 7 seconds or less offense. Molly Kennedy, 5:21.15. Whoa. Vogel a full 10 seconds behind Kennedy in third. As we will see who will round out fourth. That is Sarah Roney. All the Owls earning and winning points. 5:57.44. So just some context between 1 and 4. Kennedy beat out Roney by 36 seconds. That's a very large gap between places 1 and 4. But that gap between first and second is one to highlight even more. What a great job by Southern Connecticut taking places 1, 2, 3, and 4. As Staten Island rounds out 5 and 6. 6:11.41, 6:28.99 for your final 2 swimmers in that event. We're going to go to event 18. This is the men's 500-yard free. If we has reached hour 3 of streaming, getting closer to the end of the event. As we have Zerva in this event, guy who I talked to this week, along with another guy who I talked to, that is Dylan Pressure. Watch out for him. All 3 men's captains competing in this event. Pressure, Sweetie, and Zerva. as I'm going to mention it on the broadcast. I'm sorry if he feels like I'm calling him out a little here, but before the next meet, I would love to chat with you, Samir Sweetie. I've spoken with both of your captains. It has nothing to do with him, by the way, about the fact that I haven't chatted with him. I have not reached out. That is fully my fault. But I would love to speak with Samir Sweetie before the next meet, just to get that full picture of what all the captains think, as well as a lot more of the women's competitors. But like I said, I did what I could this week. It's a busy week around the athletic department. But anyways, we are in action here. Full pool for the 500 free. Since Nick Zerva's in this race, and we already mentioned Dylan Pressure's responses toward the beginning of the broadcast, we're going to talk a little bit about Zerva. And one thing Zerva talked about, I asked him, was about this giant turnover. He said 7 or 8 seniors from last year graduated, including, this is not something he said, this is something I'm adding, but including McAllister Milne, who was a huge piece of this team. McAllister Milne was a transfer from the Division I UConn. But 7 or 8 seniors from last year, and then added 9 to 10 freshmen. This is just on the men's side. So it's just like a complete new team, which has its good and its bad. You know, he said he's just trying to get everyone on the same page, bring the culture back that we lost from last year, and make sure that everyone follows the culture. Because if you look up the stat, they've won 80% of conference championships since 2004. So there's a big culture of winning, and winning has been all that matters for us. And he's trying to show the freshmen and newcomers especially what that means. What that means to me as someone who's been part of 3 championships. How much that means to me and how good it feels. Because a lot of people coming out of high school, they don't understand. They go to a club meet, they swim well, they get the best time, they're happy. But in college, it's a little bit different, especially here. I would take a conference championship over a best time any day. You know what I'm saying. So there's been that big difference to get everyone on the same page. So talking about what Zerva said there, I'm just going to say it. Zerva's not a guy that you see a lot of the time placing in the 1 through 4 spots. He mentioned later on in the interview that he's doing very well at practice, but it's not necessarily clicking in the dual meets for him. But he's really a leader. You see what the Owls do before the beginning of the meet. They do that big chant. They do that, and we hit the deck like chant in the corner, and Zerva's the one leading that. He's that vocal voice. But these captains are super big for all the men's guys. Sweetie, Pressure, Zerva, all super big on the men's side, and I'm sure the women's captains are doing a great job as well. But like Pressure doing a great job being vocal. He talked to me about that transition of being just a regular swimmer and now coming up and having that leadership position. So these captains are doing a great job. I asked Zerva about what it's like to be a captain. He said he was talking more about the culture. And he said, we sat down as a team and we're talking about what they need to do at the beginning of the season. And then he had his own private meeting with Dylan and Samir, the other 2 captains. And they were talking about how to implement that. He said they laid it out. Now we're the ones who need to set the example or the ground rules. And they need to lead. He believes in leading by example. We told everybody what we need to do. Now we need to show everybody that. He talks about the senior class being very close, 7 or 8 of them. So he knows that they're all on the same page. So him, Pressure, and Sweetie, they set it up at the top. The seniors help implement it, and then it trickles down all the way to the freshmen is basically what Zerva said. But speaking of Zerva out there in lane 8, he's on his own island. Your leader off of the last split, it's a distance race, so you know what that means. Dylan Pressure is in the top of the race. Length 15 for Dylan. As he swam that 16:50 at the beginning of the race, that was incredible. Pressure continuing along. Guess you could say applying the pressure. As he'll hit that line, 30-16 for Dylan. As just look at how many kicks he gets. You look at Dylan Pressure out there in lane 4, just how his feet just move so quickly. 17 lengths down for Dylan. Pressure, can he continue to apply it? A long race, a lot of pressure, and there's the bell. It is for Dylan. 29.03 is his last split. We'll see if he can break 29. If he got 29.03 on the last split, I think he'll break 29 in this lap. Bold prediction. Turn it around for the flip. Dylan in the lead. Can he continue to close the gap? Lane 6 also doing a great job out there. That is Samir Sweetie. Pressure brings it home. 4:54.10 for Dylan Pressure. We are going to go back to our good old friend Swim Cloud. And look at that men's 500 free in the conference is taking home 2. That is Sam Whitaker. Great job to Sam Whitaker. Zerva talked about him as someone who's doing very well in practice, and it's not necessarily clicking, but it's clicking now for Whitaker. Sweetie in 3rd. Zerva rounds out 5th. Lopez of Staten Island in 4th. We look at the top times in the conference for the 500 free on the men's side. 4:37.57 out of Bridgeport is what takes it as the top. 4:57.07 is Samir Sweetie's time. That puts him at 14th in the conference, but 4:54.10 for Dylan Pressure puts him in 9th. Continuing along, though, in lane 1 here. On the last, it's Staten Island. So your top finishers all from Southern except for place 4. That is Lopez of Staten Island. Finishing in 5th, that is Nick Zerva of Southern Connecticut. Ranked number 6, Garcia Fuentes out of Staten Island. As we still are dealing with that flickering on the broadcast, I'm going to cut you to our camera that's working. We're going to get set for our next event after this one. We're going to go to the 100 breast. Abby Lyons, Alison Kitos, Emma St. Hilaire are your competitors. But it looks like lane 8 out there getting a bit of a warm-up length in for Southern Connecticut. As it looks like we are going to take a... Oh, never mind. We're back. I'll keep you updated here as we can read off a little bit more of the information I prepared. I want to read a little bit more about CSI. I asked him if there's anything different about this team than in years past. And Coach said, yes, after 2 years in the Northeast 10 Conference, it feels like we've formed an identity within the conference to motivate each other to compete with the other NE10s as well as the teams in our region. Goals for the season, Coach said, I think it would be every coach's goal to win a conference championship, but we know that will not happen overnight. So our focus is to just better our results from last season and do our best to rise to the team rankings. What he's done best at, the coach says, I think our team does a great job competing. Not every meet gave us the result we wanted to, but we have many athletes who have bested their times before. We've bested their times before. We have rested with suits. If we can swim fast while being tired and uncomfortable, we will have great results when we are rested and suited. I asked him, what do you think we need to work on? He said, we need to do better at the little things, better finishes, smarter breathing, and better breakouts. If we can put it all together, we will be successful. Anyways, back in action here, 100 breast. Lyons, Kitos, and St. Hilaire are your Owls competitors. In lane 2, it is Lyons, who we saw get an individual win at WPI. So shout out to Abby Lyons for getting that win down there at WPI. And something we didn't mention is the success of this women's squad. Just overall from last year, as we're going to pull that in, history and background, they lost some seniors. 9 of them, including a couple big pieces: Ariana Arturi, Justice Glasgow, Jordan Herman, Brooke Keeney, Ella Marzik, Lindsay McCauley, Haley Nyquist, Abby Peach, and Natalie Weir. 23 gold medals from the seniors alone were lost on this women's squad. Justice Glasgow was the biggest piece, though. Earned an All-American and competed in NCAA Division II Championship. And that was the 3rd straight year of her doing it. Molly Kennedy and Paula Castillo come back, though, as they were members of NE10 All-Conference. And Tim Quill was the Women's Swimming Coach of the Year. Back to the breast, though. We are finishing this race out. Kitos in first, Struck from Staten Island in second. That is St. Hilaire in third, and Abby Lyons rounds out fourth. So the Owls gain 4-point scorers there. Kitos, St. Hilaire, and Lyons. Correction, that's 3 point scorers. You can tell that I am not a math major. And if I were, that would say something about my studying ability. Reading a little bit about the conference championship last year. This was the 5th consecutive NE10 championship for the women. The women put up 1081. Their 2nd year in a row of over 1K points. Bentley was second at 719. So you see that gap between those two programs is just insane. 2nd consecutive year that Molly Kennedy was named the outstanding swimmer of the Northeast 10 Conference meet, capturing all 7 of her events. She set records in 4 of them. The Owls won a medal in every swimming event on the women's side. 33 medals, 13 golds, 11 silvers, and 9 bronze. 13 different athletes medaled. Glasgow, the graduating senior, won 7 medals, 5 golds, and 2 bronze. 10 medals from people still on the team. Kennedy with 7 of those. Those medals for Molly Kennedy came in the 800-yard freestyle relay, 200-yard freestyle relay, 500 free, 200 free, 200-yard medley relay, 100-yard freestyle, and 400-yard freestyle relay. A lot of relays for Kennedy. As we are on to the men's 100-yard breaststroke. This is event number 20. This is your last individual event of the night. And since it is your last individual event of the night, I want to read off some stats in general from our men's team from last year, because that's exactly what I did about the women. We're going to get to that right now. History and background. Men's swim and dive won their 4th straight NE10 championship last year, 17th all-time dating back to 2003. They won it on the last day. 912 points. Adelphi was close behind at 878. 34 medals, including 7 individual championships. This is the 14th year since 2003 that Southern Connecticut has swept the NE10s. Owls medals in the 1650 free, 200 backstroke, 400-yard freestyle relay, 200-yard breaststroke, and 200-yard backstroke. All of last year's golds for the men came from seniors, except for Ben Frazier's role in that 800-yard relay. They lost some huge pieces. Kobe Dominguez, Franklin Kuhn, Drew Ladner, McAllister Milne, Jonathan Tressel on the diving side, and Henry Velasquez. But in this race here, it is Nick Fournier that comes out on top. Shout out to Nick Fournier. Worked all year last year, practicing, not necessarily competing out there, but in his year off, you can tell it paid off. 103.17 for Fournier. A huge shout out to him. And a huge shout out to him for talking to me and giving me my information for this week, as we're going to get to the relays now. And since Fournier won that race, I want to highlight something that he said about this team. He said, I think the team is doing very well so far. A lot of good swims all around early in the season. Also a lot of tough competition early in the year. What has gone well for us, though, is our mentality. We want to race. We wake up every morning wanting to be better. We encourage each other in the pool, the weight room, academically, and in the locker room. What we need to do is just keep up all the hard work, keep building each other up, and keep rising to the occasion. That's a great quote from Fournier. How does that not get you fired up? I asked him how he's specifically doing. Well, he just won a race, so I think you know what that means. Pretty good. He said, specifically, I think I'm in a good spot. I'm lifting heavier. I'm swimming faster. Currently, I'm faster now at this point in the season than I was at this point in the season 2 years ago before I redshirted. Goals for the rest of the season for him, taking everything one day at a time, one meet at a time, one race at a time. I do have more personal goals, too, like breaking 210 and 1 flat in the breast events. I asked him about competing against Division I opponents as this women's relay starts. I'm going to read this last quote off from Fournier. He said, competing against Division I teams early in the season pushes us to a higher standard right away. Racing faster athletes helps us develop our race strategies and get comfortable under pressure. By the time we reach conference, we're more confident and better prepared because we've already faced tough competition together. I don't know who gave this kid his media training, but he's a superstar, is Nicholas Austin Fournier. Women's relay here. We're going to get into the live action, folks. Sorry I got a little distracted in the last few races reading off all this great information. But in the lead, it is lane 4. That is Southern Connecticut A. This is 200 free relay. Erilyn Vogel to Jillian Pitchell were your first two. And here comes length 3. Emily Denise and Rena Loicano will finish it off for Southern Connecticut, as a name I'm not seeing in any of these relay teams is Molly Kennedy. Lane 3, it's Emmerich Dominguez Ventura and Claire Hanna. Lane 4, it is Erilyn Vogel, Jillian Pitchell, Emily Denise, and Rena Loicano. Lane 4, it's Abby Lyons, Zoe McNeil, Ellie Baker, and Callie Dominguez. Lane 7, Julia Pitchell, Sarah Roney, Rachel Bing, and Ainsley Dahl. No Kennedy in a freestyle relay. That is wild. Maybe they're giving her a rest. Tight competition there between lanes 6, 7, as it's SCSU teams B and D battling it out there. Lane 4, though, eating up the race there. That is Loicano will finish it out for first with SCSU A 142.91. Second, it's SCSU B 146.59. Third, 147.70. SCSU D and SCSU C in fourth. The relays are a bit heavier weighted as far as point totals go for a meet, and Southern Connecticut taking home the top 4 spots in the relay. Think about how many points that adds up to on an already great day for the women, as we'll see if the men can cap off a great day here. Only one Staten Island team to 4 of Southern Connecticut. Your first legs will be Alex Hearns, Jack Fry, Nick Zerva, and Lucas Quiroga. As we get prepared for our last meet, once again, shout out to everyone who supplied me with information for this meet, as well as everyone watching at home on the SCSU Owls YouTube channel. We are underway here from the Hutch, our final event. It is lane 4 that has that lead. That's Fry again. We saw him perform well at WPI. He's been doing well today. Look at Jack Fry. Keep it moving. Fry touches the line. His split, 22.01 for Jack Fry. Second swimmers jumping into the lane for most of the squads. In lane 4, keeping the lead, that is Ben Frazier. It'll go Fry, Frazier, Kennedy, Scott. Ben Frazier, a large lead here, as Aiden Kennedy will get ready, brother of Molly Kennedy. If you want to check out that sibling story, check out this semester's edition of the Crescent magazine with J. Mai Vasquez writing that one up. Look at Kennedy, Southern Connecticut A, proving why they're in the A team, showing the superhero group of these 4. Kennedy, almost a length ahead of everyone else except for lane 6, that is SCSU B. Kennedy will hit the line, 22.11. Here's Scott. Look at Scott. He's going sicko mode, is Travis Scott. As he comes to the line, flips the turn. We'll see what he can do here, as he will hit the line here, round it out for SCSUA in 128.82. A commanding win, 132.34 for SCSU-B. Third place is Staten Island, 137.22. SCSU-C rounds out fourth, 137.25. As that is our final length there for that men's 200-yard freestyle relay. As that is our final event today, I want to thank everyone for tuning in on the Owls YouTube channel, SCSU Owls, For myself, Ben Martin at the Hutchinson Natatorium, thank you all for tuning in to our 22 event meet against the College of Staten Island Dolphins. We're going to end this live stream right here. Thank you for tuning in.